Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I am going to be starting a reading vlog. I had this idea of doing a reading vlog where every month I go to a different Chicago bookstore, like independent bookstore, and pick out a book and read it for the month. There are a couple of different reasons why I wanted to do this. Part of the reason why is because, like, back in the day, I used to spend a lot of money on books. I even made a whole set of videos talking about how much money I've spent like over the course of a year. And over time, like that number has significantly dropped, mostly on purpose. Like I started using my library a lot and that actually became my preferred method of getting books because then I could like test out different books and didn't feel bad if I like feel like I wasted money or something along those lines. And it basically came to the point where like I didn't really visit independent bookstores unless I was traveling on vacation. Like when I go on trips and things like that, if I can, I like to visit an independent bookstore in that town. I use that as kind of like my souvenir. And so outside of that, I wasn't really buying books. Every now and then, like at the end of the year, I might buy a couple of my favorite books to have on my bookshelves. But yeah, I haven't really been going to independent bookstores. And then like recently there have been a couple of things that kind of made me want to start regularly visiting them again. One of them is that I really like the idea, or I really try to spend my money in ways that align with my values. So, like supporting companies and businesses that I like having in the world versus not. So, like, I don't shop on Amazon very much, except for when I really need to because I can't find it somewhere else or something along those lines. I shop at my local like smaller coffee shops versus going to like a Starbucks or Dunkin' most of the time. You know, things along those lines. I try to do that as much as possible. And like I like the idea of having independent bookstores around Chicago. There's a website that's set up for like Independent Bookstore Day that lists all the like Chicago land area bookstores that participated in the past year. And last year there were like 50-ish bookstores on that list, which is crazy and amazing. Recently, a couple of them like basically have shut down for the year, and it makes me sad because some of the ones that shut down were ones that I really enjoyed. And so I'm like, I need to spend my money like in the places that I value so that way those places stay around. I haven't had a very large TBR recently. These are the books that are left, but I also haven't been reading a lot of physical books lately because having a small child, it's really hard to hold a physical book and read while they're around because at least my kid wants to grab the book and play with it and potentially rip the pages and things like that. So I've been doing a lot of e-reading, but I've recently started like working my way through my physical TBR again because there are books on there that have been sitting for like a year or two, even though it's so small, just because of like the fact that for the past year, I haven't really read a lot of physical books and I like enjoyed my physical books. But also like the books that are on my physical TBR are not books that at least I personally hear a lot about. So like recently I read Country of Origin. This is a book that I picked up while traveling. One of the things I like to do when I go to independent bookstores is I try to find a book that sounds interesting to me that I wouldn't have like found anywhere else. And I've literally heard no one else talking about this book, but it has pretty good ratings on Goodreads. So I ended up picking it up and I enjoyed my time with this book, but I never would have heard about this or read about this otherwise. Another one that I'm currently reading, I'm almost done with, is When We Were Birds. Picked this up at an event that some like local black owned Chicago bookstores was doing. This like there were, I think, 4 or 5 different bookstores all set up at a space, and so like they were having like a little mini book fair, and this is one of the books that I got from one of the bookstores. And again, haven't heard anyone really talking about this book. Enjoyed my time with this book, but never would have picked it up otherwise. I picked up recently, there's a bookstore, it's not the one I'm going to today, but it's called Restored Bookstore or bookshop, something along those lines, and they are owned by a Filipino man. It focuses on primarily like Asian and Asian American authors, and so I picked up this book, The Fertile Earth. Haven't read it yet, but I read like the first couple of pages while I was there, and I was like, this is really like, I was into the writing. Looked it up, has very high ratings on Goodreads. Don't hear anyone talking about it. A lot of these are, you know, from smaller presses or smaller presses within a larger press. Like this one is Flatiron Books. This one is Anchor Books. This one I'm pretty sure was an independent. Yeah, Deep Vellum, which is a smaller press. And so like I like the fact that like when you go to independent bookstores, a lot of times they work on getting like the popular books that they know are going to sell, but they also will often get books that you don't see other places. You know, the people who work and own these bookstores are book lovers themselves, and so they're reading a lot and they're excited to share books with people and things like that. And so a lot of times I end up finding books that, again, just haven't heard of anywhere else. Don't see people talking about it. Like, is this video going to be super popular? Because I'm not reading a very popular book, most likely. Probably not, but that's one of the things I love about going to independent bookstores, is just like the serendipitous nature of like, you don't know what you're necessarily going to find there. And I really enjoy like finding something, especially if it's like by a non-white author, if it's by a smaller press, and if it's something that I haven't heard of before. So yeah, I thought that this would just be like a fun video series, and it would get me like out and about around Chicago, which I haven't been doing as much since having a kid. You guys could see some of the really cool bookstores we have in this area, so if you're ever visiting, you can check them out yourself if you wanted to. You know, I'm gonna grab some good eats, because one thing that's great about Chicago is we've got some good eats. So yeah, I just thought this was a fun series. I don't know what I'm going to find. I don't know how I'm going to feel about the book at the end of it, but you are going to find out with me. So let's get going.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain.
All right, I'm back home. I didn't take a lot of footage while I was at the bookstore, mostly because it was very not crowded, but it was busier than I expected it to be. I didn't think about the fact that I'm recording this on New Year's Eve, and so there's probably a lot of people who don't have work today, and therefore they are out and about, like shopping and eating and things like that. The nice thing about City Lit is that it's right in the heart of like Logan Square, right around like the square part. If you look at it on a map, it makes sense. It is like right next to a bunch of restaurants and things like that. And the restaurant that my husband and I went to today is called Lula Cafe, which is very popular. It's one of those like, I guess classic Logan Square restaurants. Like if you look up where to eat in Logan Square, it's always like towards the top of the list. And it's one of those places I've been wanting to try for literally years. Just haven't had the time or opportunity to do so because it's always packed and busy. Like even when we went there, we had to put our names on the list, on the wait list, and it was a 45-minute wait. So it was like the perfect way to just like put your name on the list, head to the bookstore. And I'm sure lots of other people were doing the same thing that we were, where they would put their name on the list at the restaurant and head to the bookstore to hang out while waiting for their name to get called or their spot on the list to come up, as we were doing. So yeah, I picked up some books. The first book, which is not the book I'm going to be reading for this vlog, is A Guardian and a Thief. This was my favorite book that I read in 2025. If you watched my top 5 books of the year video, you will know this already. I did a full review on this book, but I originally got this from the library, and so I knew I wanted to get a physical copy of this book to have on my bookshelves. I literally just realized right now that this is a signed first edition as well, which is very nice. Didn't realize that when I was in the bookstore. I just was like, oh, I need to grab that book. I might as well get it while I'm here. So I bought this, and then I also bought, this is the book I'm going to be reading, The Sons of El Rey by Alex Espinosa. Yeah, just like I said at the beginning of the video, one of the things I like to do when I'm at these independent bookstores is like try to find a book I've never heard of before. Haven't heard of this book at all, but there's like a ton of like blurbs on this book, like on the back as well as on the inside, praising this book. It has a decent rating, I think like a 3.8 on Goodreads. I don't read like too much about a book before picking it up because I don't want to know too much about a book. I like to go in as blind as possible. I just want like a vibe and like a general sense of what this book is about. So this one follows like a family of luchadors, and I think it's specifically like a father and a son that you jump back and forth between their perspectives. The father is Ernesto and he lives in Mexico, and then the son is Freddie. Yeah, Freddie, I think. And possibly you're also following Freddie's son, Julian, and they like live in Los Angeles. And so, yeah, it has a ton of praise. The premise sounds interesting. It's like, seems like it's a family drama sort of situation, but I'm very excited to pick this up and just give it a try and see how it goes. I'm going to start it today, but to be honest, I kind of need a nap because my child has been sick for a couple of days, and so she hasn't been sleeping well, which means I haven't been sleeping well. But I did want to show off one more book that I got. I actually stopped at the library because I put this book on hold a while ago, and it came in for me, and that's The Slightest Green by Sahar Mustafa. She wrote the book The Beauty of Your Face, which is, I feel like a lot of people were recommending when talking about Palestinian authors, and so this is her new release. So I got this from the library. I won't be reading that for this video. That will be coming later in the month. But yeah, I really enjoyed getting to go to City Lit. Like I said, it was kind of busy in there, so I didn't take a lot of footage because I didn't want to get like other people in the shot and stuff like that. It's kind of awkward vlogging in front of other people. It's just such a good bookstore. There were so many books in there that I wanted to buy or considered buying. A couple I've already like put on my like want to read list for my library. One of them was Stillborn, which was long listed, potentially shortlisted for the International Booker Prize, like the Works in Translation one. I strongly considered buying this book, but I technically had heard of it before, and I have like mixed, mostly negative sort of feelings when it comes to books that are listed on the Booker Prize for some reason. Like, for whatever reason, what the people of the Booker Prize want is never what I want out of a novel. And so I've never really tried reading books that were on the like international translated lit section of the prize, but this like premise sounded interesting, so I was like, oh, I'll just get that one from my library. And then the other one was called Sleep Phrase by Mohammed Kier. This one is also, I think, a book, like a work in translation, but it follows a man who was like in prison in Cairo, Egypt. Like, he was in prison for almost a decade, and then he finally gets out, and like, you know, Cairo is just so completely different, because I think that during the time that he's in prison, there's like a revolution that happens in Cairo, and so he's kind of trying to figure out his life after being in prison. I think this book sort of looks at what it's like to be an ex-convict and stuff like that, and trying to get your life back together after being in prison and how difficult it can be. That one was a very strong contender as well. I think that's another one that I will probably, I put it on my list again, like I said, to pick up from the library. But yeah, it sounded really good and was definitely a contender. And like, honestly, the main reason why I picked this one over that one, solely based on like the vibes, this one feels less serious, question mark, but I could be wrong. And like, this one had like a slightly higher rating on Goodreads. Like, this is a 3.8. I think the other one was a 3.7, so it's like minuscule, but still, these are the things that are required when needing to figure out the one book that you're going to buy at the bookstore. So yeah, very excited to jump into this one, but I'll probably read a little bit and then take a nap because, like I said, I need a nap really badly. Yeah, new mom life.
Just like a spark that's breaking out, can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up, babe. Tonight we gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We gonna light it
Hi all. So I am about 90 pages into the book, so I thought I could do a quick synopsis of what I know so far. So this is a family drama, and I'm making a salad while I talk to you guys. So this is a family drama. You are following, there's three generations of this family that you're following. It's mainly following Ernesto, who is the patriarch, who is in modern day or current day in the book in hospice care, and his family is expecting him to pass away relatively soon. He was married to a woman, Elena, who has already passed away at this point. And then there is their son, Freddie. And they also have a daughter who, so far in the book, you have not gotten a perspective from. She's just sort of referenced. And then there is Freddie's son, Julian. So you are flashing back and forth in time as this family is grappling with Ernesto getting ready to pass, and sort of the regrets that they have within their family. And then you also will go back in time and see sort of stories of their past, because while Ernesto is passing, he's not speaking anymore and things like that, but he sort of has all these thoughts, and he's imagining his wife and having conversations with her and thinking about their history together. So they were born and lived in a small town in Mexico, and then decided to move to Mexico City, and I'm assuming at some point he's going to become a luchador. And then you also know that at some point they moved to the United States, and I'm sure we'll get perspectives of that at some point. And his son Freddie eventually also becomes a luchador, which bonds the two of them together. And Freddie is now dealing with the fact that the gym that they ran together as a family will probably be shut down. They have other people that they've hired on staff to be luchadors and performers and things like that. And there's also this part of the story that's about Julian not becoming a luchador and going to college and stuff like that. So I think that so far it's really interesting. I'm really enjoying my experience with this book, because I'm someone who enjoys sort of family sagas and multi-generational stories and stuff like that. The one thing I was worried about is the fact that this is told from multiple perspectives. And so I was concerned that I wouldn't enjoy that, because I'm typically someone who doesn't enjoy multiple POV books. But I actually am liking this a lot. I think it's because all their stories are connected. So you're basically getting one big family story just from multiple perspectives. So it works as multiple POVs, and it's kind of you're finding out details about this family slowly over time, or in bits and pieces, going back and forth to different phases of their family life. So yeah, really enjoying my experience with it so far. My kid is sleeping right now, and I'm trying to make lunch or make something to eat for lunch before she wakes up. And hopefully we'll get some more reading done. Reading a physical book while having a kid is not super easy, at least a toddler. So I try to squeeze in pages wherever I can. And hopefully I'll have a little bit more of an update for you guys in a couple days.
3 days later.
So it's been a crazy couple of days because my kid is sick. But I just wanted to, and I just put her down to sleep. So I'm talking on the quieter side, although I'm mic'd up, so hopefully you can still hear me pretty well. But I wanted to come on and just say that I finished The Sons of Valere. And overall, I think I would give this a 3.5 star rating. I like this a lot. It was not at all what I expected, but kind of in a good way. I know I gave a brief synopsis when I first started this book, but basically you are following the different members of this family: Ernesto, Freddie, Julian, and then you do get some perspectives from Elena, but as a ghost mostly, and you get to see sort of some of the decisions that were made and how that impacted the other generations and things like that, which is always something that I really enjoy. I will say there were the typical complaints that I have with multi-POV books, where there was just one specific perspective, Julian, who I just didn't really love his POV and everything that was going on with his storyline. I'm not going to say too much, but there's just a lot of nothing explicit, but sexual related content in those sections. And I was just I don't know how I feel about all this. Not that it's bad, but it just felt so disconnected from the rest of the book. Although it does come together basically in the end, but I don't know, something about it just wasn't quite for me. And it feels like Freddie's point of view was the shortest, and I was very intrigued by his point of view, and like the stuff going on in his storyline. And so like this book also just like suffered from I just wanted more about all of the characters, which I feel like is a positive sign because like I enjoyed them enough that I wanted more of it. So I feel like that's a good complaint to have. So yeah, overall I enjoyed my experience with this book. Again, never heard of this, never would have picked it up if I didn't just stumble upon it at City Lit Books last week. And I'm hoping that over the course of this year, I'll be able to visit more indie bookstores around Chicago. And if I go outside of Chicago, hopefully I can record and visit some indie bookstores wherever I end up going. And we can have more experiences like this where we discover books that are new to me and get to experience some of the great bookstores that we have in this area. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this. My goal is to like do more recording in the bookstores if possible. But this most recent time, I felt like it was just so crowded. I don't want to be like recording people without their consent, but like great on City Lit for having such a solid crowd. So yeah, that's my quick little vlog. If you've read this book at all, please let me know down in the comments below what you've thought of it. Or, you know, if you've been to Chicago or live in the Chicagoland area, let me know what your favorite indie bookstore is. Or shout out your own local indie bookstore if you have one nearby. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.